If you make music, but piano is not your main instrument, like in my case, it can be really frustrating to find the right chord progressions and harmonies for your song. And, I used to go to Splice and, sample a lot or click my notes in, but I just found a really compelling program called Cymasphere, which essentially lays out all the chords for you and helps you to find the right chord progressions for your project. Let's take a look at this. This is what it looks like. It might look like a lot in the beginning, but the beauty of it, as I've experienced it in the last weeks, is it's so easy to get started. You can just click on these chords and they sound right away. But it's also incredibly complex. There are so many settings that you can set that one set just helps you make it easier. So I'm going to give you an overview of what I like to use, and then we can maybe make a song with it, just so you can see how I use it. Let's click on some of these cymatics here to see what they sound like. So as you can see, it is sorted in an easy way where on the top here you have modes of major, you have composite minor, and you have diminished chords. You can add more to these, you have more down here. I would say let's keep it rather simple, keep it maybe at the 3 that are already selected here. But I want to show you why this is so powerful. Let's click on one of these cymatics, like C in this case. And not only will the sound play, but also you can see it down here on the keyboard, which notes are actually being played on the piano, right? What that chord would look like on the piano. So you can see that you've got all the keys of, in this case, C, right? C major. Why do we know that? Because here we have the key of C. So we start with C major, D minor, and so on. What's interesting about this now is that you can make changes to any of these chords, any of these cymatics, or the whole bank over here, or even the whole palette, which is literally all the chords you see in front of you. By the way, this works on the phone and it works on the iPad. I've used it on my iPhone, and I was pretty surprised by how easily I could connect it to Ableton, to my DAW, and it worked just the same way. So you could even have your stuff to go in the bus or something. Now, before I dive into some of these features, and before we make a song together, I want to show you the 2 most powerful things that I thought were incredibly cool in the whole program. One of them is voice lead, and the other one is smart chord. What does voice lead do? If you click on this, and you can see that I've applied this to the whole palette now, to all of them, not just one cymatic. The voice lead basically says we intuitively go to the next chord that you click on with the fewest steps needed on the keyboard, right? So let's say I'm in C, and now I go to E. You see how just one chord changed over here? Let's go back to C. Let me disable voice lead, and let's go back to E. You can see that now all of these chords are jumping, right? So it's that E that also goes up. So this is incredibly powerful because that's what a lot of piano players do, right? They want to not move their hands very much. It sounds better if the piano is sort of kept in a certain range and you don't move all the notes. You know, the notes that can stay, they stay. And you just click on a button and it happens for you. That's powerful. The smart chord feature is really cool. Smart chord allows you, it basically skips all the rather unpleasant sounding notes in a scale, right? When you have ba da 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 da, the ba, for example, can sometimes create a friction that is undesired, especially when you have certain chord progressions. So just clicking on the smart chord thing will get rid of unwanted notes, which is a blessing. So voice lead and smart chord are enabled for all notes. Let's start thinking about some cool chord progressions that we put into Ableton. So I'm just going to start Ableton here, and then we're going to see if we can actually create sounds in Ableton to record. All right, so this was super easy. I just imported a piano. I got inspired by the piano sound in Cymasphere, so I got another piano here in Ableton. It is a MIDI track. I armed it, and you can see that if I listen to Cymasphere now, and basically just turn off the audio sampler internally, I can still hear the piano that is now being triggered in Ableton. Listen to this. And we want to record something. Let's think about something inspiring. We start with a C here. Actually, let's not make it in C. Let's just start in the key of F, for example. So now you can see that they have all been rearranged. When I did this the last time, I went for a different look. So let's also give them some other color here. How about this one? This one looks great, given the current season. All right, now the first thing I like to do is to think about which range we want the piano to play in. And there's a really handy button over here which says FX. You see this? This is the voice lead, and it gives you the range, the total range in which the piano should play. Now, I want to say I kind of want to start by starting at C4. So it would not play the lower octave. It would just start at C4 instead of C3. And when you listen to this, this is what it sounds like now. The next thing I want to do is to not have all the notes be played at exactly the same time. It sounds a little bit too computer to me. You know what I mean? If I click the F minor here, all the notes are played at the same time. If you click on the little guitar button here, you can actually enable strum, which is something between a harp, which would be ba-da-da-da-da-da, or more like a guitar, where they're all just a little bit apart. Let's just go for something like 1 millisecond here, just so we have a little bit of a different timing for each note that's being played when hitting a chord. Let's start with F. And let us look at these. So expression allows you to have multiple, different chords being triggered every time you click on the same thing, which we're not going to do right now. It's in an Ionian scale, that's fine. Bass. Let's click on bass. What does that mean? When I hit the chord now, you can see that a bass is always played with the chord. Now, if you think the bass is too low and you want to have it be played back at a different octave, you could go to spacing. And at spacing, you can see that you could also just say +1 octave, right? So we've already shifted our, the part of the piano where we want the chords to play up a little bit. So now we can also do the same with the bass. And I think it sounds a little bit lighter. It sounds a bit better. Let's say we want a not just triad chord, but something more complex. For example here, the A minor. We can just hit the chord tab, and now we can say, what do we want instead of the normal triads chord, which is the first, the third, and the fifth part of the scale, right? So we want, let's say, a chord with 4 notes in it. So one of them would be the 7th chord right here, which is just the 7 added on top of the previously existing triad. So we're going to click that. And now, every time we hit this chord, there is a 7 on top. Note that I had the palette symbol selected. So this actually applied to all of these cymatics here in the view field. So if we wanted to keep this one, for example, just a normal triad chord, we would have to go back, say, okay, we want all of them to be normal triads, but this one, specifically for this cymatic, we want a 7th chord. So we're going to go back to voice count. And you can actually see that certain chords now are red, and that is because Cymasphere tells us, look, this might not sound good, right? Maybe stick to the ones that I suggest you use. And this is where it's so powerful. Because now listen to this, for example. That's a beautiful chord progression. And it was as simple as looking at it, saying, this chord sounds good, but I want to give it a different quality. I want 4 notes instead of 3 notes. And actually, I want this to be an A minor 7 chord. So when I do that, you can hear this is now A minor 7. Let's think about something we can record in Ableton here. I actually like this little sequence. Huh. I like that. How about instead of just using the root configuration for all the chords, we do an inversion, which means at C major, for example, instead of C, E, G, we put the C at the octave and end up with E, G, C. So that way we have the root on the top of the chord, which I think gives it a bit of a lighter character. Here's what the root sounds like. And now let's do the first inversion and put the F on top here. One other super cool feature, I think, is the voice count here. That feature allows you to make your chord sound more full by adding new notes. And you don't have to worry about which notes it adds because it does it automatically depending on which chord you have selected. So if you feel like there's only, I guess with the bass, 1, 2, 3, 4 notes in there, maybe you want your piano in your song to be fuller. So let's just say we want, maybe not this one, maybe this one. Let's give it some more depth, right? Let's make it sound more full. Let's just go to the voice count here and say instead of 3 notes or 4 with the bass, let's do 7. So what does it sound like now? Now, this obviously applied to all of them because I had the palette selected here. So I'm gonna go back down to 4 and I'm gonna say only the somatic should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now let's listen to this. And maybe we could give the A here also 5 instead of just 3. To sort of fill up the spectrum. I like where this is going. And by the way, when we hit the B flat twice here, we could say, okay, the first time I hit it, it will sound like this. And the second time, now it sounds the same, but we can say, hey, the second expression I give it, right, there's gonna be 2. So, oops, let's activate it. Give it another expression. And we're gonna say the second time, let's select a different chord here and feel free to try them all out. I mean, this is where it gets, I guess, a little bit more complex, but let's listen to what the second one would sound like. And the first one, second, first. You see how when I click this somatic now, the expression here changes every time I click it, basically iterating through all of the chords that I've set for that one somatic. It's a slow one. Let's do 92. I'm gonna just record the piano here in my Ableton Live program. You could obviously use Pro Tools, Logic, Cubase, FL Studio, whatever you want. 2, 3, and... So you can see it has been recorded exactly like I wanted, already giving it a bit of the strum that we set earlier. So now I have the option to go in and add all of my effects, like for example, adding a little bit of an EQ after, not having to worry about the chords at all because it's all done. So let's add a little bit of high frequencies here. I like this one, so I'm just going to take it and copy paste it. Let's add a quick beat. I'm going to do this real quick so we have a bit of a musical piece, and then we could reuse Cymasphere and the chords to add some other instruments. How about it? Okay, I feel like we should add some strings to this. I just inserted the new strings here, and I'm gonna give it a nice brown color, and now we're gonna trigger that using the same cymatics. Let's go. Wow, okay, first of all, I wanna give them some reverb. That's better. I think what would be cool is to have the first 3 chords be an octave lower, and then have the D minor and the C major come in as a higher register. Let's try that. I like that. Another idea I just had was to make an intro with the strings. And I think the reason this is cool is that we already have the strings as part of our, main loop, but we could get creative with some of these cymatics here by just recording something maybe without a metronome. All right, my takeaway, Cymasphere is really fun. I've had a lot of fun using it. It's super easy, click and play. You have so many options, you can change so many things, and eventually I wanted to change more things as I used it more. In the beginning, I was actually already fine by just clicking the buttons. You can even separate the MIDI data that you send. You can look at every individual note. You can give it some overall changes, like using this dynamics window here, which adds some swells, which I thought was really nice on the strings. And I encourage you, if you download it, I think it comes with a test version, you can click on this button here, and that is the tutorials. And I've worked through all of these tutorials, and by doing that, I felt like I learned a lot of music theory, and I got more, familiar with the program and started to actually really enjoy it. So this is going to be from now on one of my tools in my toolbox, and I'm really happy about it, and I hope that you try it out and check it out for yourself. Have fun. I hope you enjoyed this, and now I'm going to finish the song that we started. All right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Technology is helping me with theory, yeah. So I can freestyle. I just need some buttons, what I really need, yeah. It does it just right. What I've used to make a song right here. I'll be forthright. Microphone able to live in Cymasphere, yeah. To get those chords right, yeah. To get those chords right, to get those chords right, yeah.